Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well, I guess this is what Democrats are talking about when they mention equity. They're always going on about equity this and equity that. Equity's different than equality. It's about bringing up those who are disenfranchised or those who suffered historic wrongs or whose families suffered historic wrongs. Blah, 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 a lot of different ways to essentially say it's communism. It's a form of Marxism that's marketed as taking care of the little guy. But are Democrats really concerned about the little guy? Are they really concerned about the little people who are at the bottom of the totem pole? No, they aren't. There's a difference between talk and there's a difference between action. There's a difference between how something is marketed and then the actual result of said action. Well, I'm laying down the groundwork here. These are important concepts. Today we're talking about Joe Biden's continued efforts at student loan forgiveness, student loan cancellation. It seems finally that people are asking the right questions. I want to have a conversation about this topic. Mostly I want to criticize the Democrat approach that pretends to be all virtuous, but really is nothing but another big bloated federal scam. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so surprising enough, here's a journalist, a White House correspondent from NBC News of all places, Mr. Peter Alexander, asking the right questions.
Just to put a fine point on it now, for the 4.7 billion Americans who have received this debt relief, the average, as you said at the start of this visit, was $35,000 their relief has been for. So I guess why don't those individuals who didn't receive $35,000 in debt cancellation deserve a $35,000 check from other Americans for what other means they would want to use it?
You're talking about
those people who didn't go to college, so they're not getting debt relief, the $35,000 that they don't get because they didn't go.
We're talking about folks who are in debt who are literally being crushed. Literally being crushed because they took
literally being crushed.
Financially. Okay, is that okay with you? Okay, but I know, but crushed financially, and so they're trying to get their lives back on track.
That's a really good question to ask. Democrats are always talking about the haves and the have-nots, the 1% and the rest of us, the top 10% and the rest of us. They're always pretending as if they're for the little guy. Wouldn't you think that blue-collar workers are the little guy? And not even blue-collar workers, because a lot of these blue-collar folk are actually doing much better than these college folk, but low-skilled laborers, janitors or people working minimum wage jobs, people who never got to even think about having aspirations of being a professional. Those are the people at the bottom of the totem pole. Well, those people are paying taxes too. Why should those people have to pay for more privileged kids to go to school? It makes no sense. And then you can think about it from an accounting perspective. If somebody's getting $35,000 in student loan forgiveness, they're essentially getting $35,000 and arguably even more, because in $35,000 worth of principal on a loan, you're going to pay interest. So essentially the government is planning on giving people who went to college a massive check, a massive leg up, a massive bonus. But then of course, on the flip side, people who never got the privilege or people who aren't in privileged enough situations to have ever considered going to college, or people who thought, I don't want to saddle myself with massive debt. I'm just going to work a job, work a trade. People who made those decisions, they don't get anything. Why isn't the government giving them $35,000 in a one-time stimulus check? Oh, well, that wouldn't make sense. No, we wouldn't be able to afford that. I'm sure that's what Democrats would say, but they have no issue with doing the exact same thing. I mean, it's ostensibly the exact same thing within a different form or within a different framing, a different marketing when it's presented as student loan forgiveness. Oh, it's irresponsible to give people a $35,000 check because that would amount to trillions of dollars in new government spending, further exacerbating inflation, of course, the deal, but giving people $35,000 in student loan forgiveness, which of course also amasses to new multi-trillion-dollar government spending proposals, well, that's a-okay. It's the same thing every time. Democrats pretend as if they're for the little guy, but the reality is that their plans benefit the few, the privileged few. Here's a study from October 3rd, 2022. Wealthy reap vast majority of benefits from Biden's student loan giveaway. Don't buy the administration's claim that student debt forgiveness benefits low-income families. Here are the key takeaways. top earners benefit the most from Biden's student loan forgiveness. Despite the administration's effort to target low-income borrowers, according to the CFRB, 57% to 65% of the extended pause and cancellation would go to those in the top half of the income spectrum. Even assuming full participation across incomes, highest earners will still reap the most financial reward. As noted by the CFRB, in order to receive the handout, Americans must fill out an application, which is likely to be a more significant barrier to low-income borrowers with fewer resources, particularly those who have long been in default or forbearance and are thus detached from the system. Earnings from the last 2 years are skewed. The pandemic caused even high-income households to report lower incomes than usual, nullifying the administration's means-testing efforts. The CFRB goes on to note that those with high earning potential and are therefore more likely or more able to pay off their student debt, such as lawyers, doctors, often take on temporary low-income jobs. There we go. We're talking about the most privileged, the most capable in society. We're talking about policy that subsidizes and benefits them. People who are becoming doctors and lawyers, engineers, people who are becoming bankers, studying finances, these people are going to make good money. Just because they're working a part-time job, working their way through college, just because they're low-income earners now doesn't mean that they'll be low-income earners forever. The idea that those people's loans should be subsidized by hardworking people who didn't go to college and aren't getting the same benefit, that's fundamentally unfair. It makes no sense. And so look, are there arguments to be made that some targeted programs can make sense? Absolutely. But Democrats aren't the people to get this job done, because what Democrats do is wide-sweeping, wide-ranging federal policy that is filled with waste. That's the reality. It's like their proposal on healthcare, for instance. Universal healthcare. They want to destroy the private sector. They want to destroy, the dollar incentive that creates all the innovation and just make a bloated communist government system that runs inefficiently like in all the other nations that they tout as having such amazing healthcare systems. Then they want to pat themselves on the back and pretend as if they did a good thing, but they didn't. These sort of policies need to be extremely targeted. First of all, I don't think they should be federal policies. I think if you're going to have any type of, school subsidizing, it needs to happen on a state level, which to a certain extent it already is. And secondly, before you subsidize this massive college scam system, you got to fix the massive college scam system. Let's be honest, the cost of many of these universities has gotten completely insane. There's a system of predatory loans. There's so much corruption and so much greed. The idea that you would simply subsidize that system is patently insane. Then we got to talk about useless degrees. What are we doing? What's the idea here? To take people who aren't necessarily qualified to be, successful academics and to just shove them in school just because? What about trades? What about incentivizing not going to college, but working with your hands or starting a business? In a lot of fields of work, you don't need a college degree, not to mention all the useless degrees, all these social studies programs. What's the idea here? To simply take millions upon millions of low-performing students and subsidize their way through useless degrees, where people feel entitled as professionals, desk workers, university and college graduates, but really they don't have the skills to do anything significant in the workplace? What's the idea? Subsidizing mediocrity? It simply doesn't make sense. There's so many issues when it comes to the college system as a whole that need to be fixed before you subsidize the college system as the whole. It's a nice slogan, student loan forgiveness, for the poor's peoples, for the poor people. But how do you actually go about doing that? That's a difficult thing. And the idea that Joe Biden and his cronies are going to present quality legislation that only benefits those who really, truly need it and deserve it, that's hard. I mean, that would be hard for the private sector, let alone the public. The reality is, student loan forgiveness benefits the most capable in society, the most elite. The people who will go on to earn the most are the people who already come from financially stable backgrounds and families who will then again go on and do well and be able to pay their own debts. It will disproportionately positively impact people who simply don't need it while hurting productivity in the rest of the economy, because you're obviously going to have to increase taxes. The conversation around this topic has to center around these questions. How do you get it done effectively? Well, I'll tell you right now, the federal government will not be able to do it. They won't be able to do it effectively. There has to be a public conversation about making school more affordable and less predatory. There has to be a conversation about the trades, but really the debate has to be, how do you target the people who really need it? I haven't seen a good solution yet. Joe Biden's solution is obviously crap. It's a last-ditch effort to try to, weasel some semblance of student loan forgiveness that's only targeting a very select group of people that Joe Biden thinks he's constitutionally able to pull off. In other words, it's another Democrat vote grab. As per usual, they're full of it and cannot be trusted. Don't fall for the election snake oil salesman tactic. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one.